Hi, everybody. My name is Caden, and I'll be part of presenting the pro-sided debate.
Everyone, I'm on the pro side of the debate as well. My name is Chris.
And just to give you guys a little introduction as to the scenario we're debating, I want you guys to imagine a company where two employees, both in managerial roles, work side by side, putting in long hours, overseeing teams, and ensuring daily operations run smoothly. Now imagine one manager earns significantly more than the other simply because of the specific department they oversee, not their broader responsibilities. Is that fair? This is what is going on at CVS stores across California. California store managers make an average of $52,000 to $63,000 a year, whereas the pharmacy managers make on average $106,000 to $150,000 a year. This is an employee equity right concern and is worth being addressed. At CVS, store managers are given the task of running the entire store, overseeing numerous employees, and managing day-to-day customer relations. Meanwhile, pharmacy managers, while crucial to the business, work in a specialized area with fewer daily challenges related to staffing, customer interaction, and store-wide operations. Yet, despite the larger scope of duties, the store managers, as stated earlier, make significantly less, and many of them think there is an underpayment equity that exists in CVS's pay structure. We would like to present the following definitions that both sides have agreed to agree upon for this debate. Our first definition being equity. Equity is defined as the quality of being fair and impartial. Equity exists when employees perceive a fair balance between their effort, skill, and experience, and the rewards, recognition, status they receive on the job, in relative comparison to their peers. Another definition is responsibility. Responsibility is defined as a state or fact of having a duty to deal with something or having control over someone. As mentioned prior, there is clear evidence to suggest that store managers have more responsibility. We recognize the unhappiness of the California store managers and firmly believe that there needs to be a pay increase for them to equal the salary of the pharmacy managers. We believe the best course of action for CVS is to create a new compensation policy that ensures pay equality across all managerial roles. This policy would clarify compensation expectations and address the pay gap by either adjusting salaries for certain roles or implementing a more standardized pay scale for CVS managers.
So our first argument as to why store managers should receive higher wages to match those of pharmaceutical managers is because store managers have a direct impact on the profitability of the store that they are assigned to. So the evidence we're going to be presenting to support this claim comes from the Journal of Retailing. And in this article, the author highlights the significance that comes with the role of being store manager. As the direct point of contact between the regional manager and the frontline employees, store managers are in an important position to translate organizational strategy. When analyzing the impact of this role, the article states, quote, following this reasoning, it is expected that a store manager's intra-organizational relationship capacity, represented by perceived leadership support, contributes to store performance in the form of primary sales and services, total sales, gross profit, and net profit. The greater a store manager's perceived leadership support, the better its store performance, end quote. From the evidence presented in this study, we believe that this correlation provides enough justification for increasing the wages of store managers to more closely match those of their pharmaceutical manager counterparts.
And regarding our second argument, it is the fact that a pay raise will promote internal equity. Upholding a feeling of justice and equality among employees is one of the core principles of a robust and prosperous company. Employee morale, job happiness, and overall productivity can all suffer when managers with comparable degrees of responsibility, such as store managers and pharmacy managers, are paid significantly differently. Employees are more likely to feel motivated and engaged when they believe their compensation reflects the value of their work and that there is equity within the company. If store managers who oversee the entire store's operations are paid significantly less than pharmacy managers, even though both roles involve a high level of responsibility, it could create feelings of frustration and resentment. This discontent can ultimately affect the commitment to the company and quality of their work. When employees feel undervalued or unfairly compensated, they may also become disengaged, reducing the motivation and efficiency they have, which harms the organization in the long term. Employee retention may also be impacted by pay disparities. Store managers may look for other options, or maybe leave the organization that they believe their efforts are not being fairly compensated in comparison to pharmacy managers. The operations of the store may be disrupted by high turnover rates and managerial roles, which can result in inefficiencies and make hiring and training new employees expensive. Ensuring equal compensation for equal effort encourages employee loyalty, increasing the likelihood that they will stick around and make valuable contributions to the company.
And now moving on to our third argument, which is going to be the broader responsibilities. So our third argument for why store managers further deserve equal pay to their pharmaceutical manager counterparts is because instead of focusing on specialization, store managers focus on a bigger picture operation as it relates to the entire store. The evidence to support this idea comes from an article titled Unraveling the Complexity of Multi-Unit Retail. The evidence from this article illustrates that store managers have to focus on a wide scope for their role, including elements such as operations, staff, inventory, and strategic planning. In this article, we find an excerpt that reads, quote, managing multiple retail units demands a comprehensive and panoramic view of the entire retail landscape. This process begins with a keen understanding of the day-to-day operations of each retail unit. It involves managing sales, customer service, store maintenance, and inventory for each unit, end quote. And the reason this quote matters is because it demonstrates the bigger picture that store managers are in charge of planning and executing. It is our argument in this case that store managers have a high degree of responsibility for carrying out the operations of the entire store, and that their pay should reflect this by matching those of pharmaceutical managers.
In conclusion, due to the store manager's influence on business strategy, greater daily responsibility, and overall dissatisfaction from them created by the pay gap, our side advocates for pay equality based on fairness, morale, and long-term success for both employees at CVS and the company as a whole. Implementing a policy establishing a pay increase for store managers will help reinforce social justice, promote inclusivity, and align CVS with the best practices. Ultimately, it benefits the company by building trust, improving employee retention, and boosting productivity.
Hi, my name's Jared,
Hello, my name is Andrew.
and we'll be presenting the con side of the argument. Do you think it's fair that someone who is required to go to school for 6 to 8 years of specialized training in order to receive a job should be paid the same amount of money as someone who did not necessarily need to go to school at all in order to receive their job position? The general topic of this issue is looking at pay differences between CVS store managers and pharmacists. According to CVS policies, store managers are not required to have a college degree. However, they do require experience and ability to operate a store whilst managing its employees. On the other hand, CVS requires its pharmacists to have a specialized degree in order to even be considered for the position as pharmacists, which often takes 6 to 8 years of school to obtain. The issue that we face in this scenario is that CVS is unsure whether to pay the pharmacists more or the same amount as the store managers. I believe that the solution to this is clear, and here's why. Some definitions we'd like to present are pharmacist. Pharmacist is defined as a person who is professionally qualified to prepare and dispense medicinal drugs. To mean that a pharmacist is someone who needs to be professionally qualified and trained prior to receiving this position. Manager. Manager is defined by a person responsible for controlling or administering all or a part of a company or similar organization. To mean that the manager position can be attainable without specialized knowledge or training, only requiring a person able to control and administer all or a part of a company. We negate the resolution that store managers and pharmacists should be paid the same amount. The course of action that we suggest is that pharmacists should be paid the national average for a pharmaceutical specialist. We also think that the store managers should make the national CVS store average salary and be provided with raises and bonuses depending on store performance.
To follow up what Jared is saying, our first argument is pharmacists receive higher salaries due to the education, training, and expertise required in order to begin practicing in this field. To become a licensed pharmacist, you must complete an academic journey that ranges between 6 to 8 years. However, it does not stop there. In addition to their intense academic journey, they must complete the NAPLEX, which is the North American Pharmacist Licensure Examination. Passing this exam is what allows you to begin practicing. Following and during their schooling, those must partake in residencies, clinicals, and research projects. An article written by CareRev in 2024, it describes the various steps that a person must go through in order to become a pharmacist, such as the testing, clinicals, and residencies. This is important because it shows us the level of education, sacrifice that those have to make in order to become a pharmacist. Pharmacists should be compensated for dedicating their years of time and effort to studying and developing their knowledge in order to help the community.
Our second argument is that there's a much smaller potential hiring pool to choose from when looking for potential candidates to fill this position. The evidence to support this is found in this article written by Laura Poole titled Pharmacist Educational Requirements. In this read, it talks about how pharmacists require specialized schooling, which can take up to 8 years to complete, and mentions all the different exams and internships that must be completed before becoming an actual working pharmacist. This makes it clear why there's not as many potential pharmacists to hire compared to potential store managers, as it is a much harder task to become a pharmacist. This matters because finding a potential pharmacist for hire is a much harder task than finding a potential store manager for hire. Therefore, making it more work for CVS to find the right person for the position, which is why I believe pharmacists deserve more pay.
And our final and third argument is that pharmacists are paid higher salaries because they operate under tighter and more demanding policies and laws. They have responsibilities of administering medication and in the correct dosage at that, while complying with all legal and regulatory guidelines. The evidence to support this is talked about in the article written by Simas and Associates. They list various important factors that factors need to keep in mind and abide to while practicing, such as the protocols, the correct amount of dosage, and if the person who signed the prescription is authorized. This is important because it shows us the different standards and higher level of standard that these pharmacists are held to, not only by the community, but by the law. Promptly paying our pharmacists also gives them an incentive to continue to work ethically and put an effort into finding the right medication, dosage, and following laws.
In conclusion, based on our arguments, we think that the pharmacists deserve higher pay than the store managers because of the harder requirements it takes for the position, the smaller potential hiring pool of qualified individuals, and the higher safety and liability policies pharmacists must vigorously follow.
And after considering the arguments of the con side, us on the pro side would like to present a couple rebuttals. One rebuttal we have is that the liability of a job does not necessarily translate to higher value. While pharmacy managers deal with high liability due to the nature of the work, the value they bring to the company should not be solely based on the level of risk involved. The argument that pharmacy managers should be paid more because of liability risks overlooks the broader value of store managers, who are responsible, if not more responsible, for equally critical areas. A more holistic approach to compensation would be to focus on the total contributions and responsibilities of both roles, not just the technical risk factors.
And we also do have a second rebuttal. While there is a smaller group of candidates to choose from in hiring pharmacy managers, there are many things wrong with that argument. While it's true that the role of pharmacy managers requires specialized education, training, and certification, making the amount of people available for the job significantly less, we argue that pay should reflect responsibility, not just talent availability. The argument that pharmacy managers should be paid more because fewer individuals are qualified to fill those positions is an oversimplification, to say the least. While a smaller talent pool may make it harder to find qualified candidates, pay should primarily reflect the scope of the responsibility and the leadership that's required for the role, not just the difficulty of finding candidates.
The rebuttals that we would like to present are first one being store managers are responsible for meeting sales quotes. While this is true, pharmacies are a large reason that stores such as CVS stay in business. In our article written by Investopedia, we find out that 67% of all CVS revenue is due to the pharmacies.
An additional rebuttal we have is that store managers are in charge of managing more staff members compared to the pharmacy staff member count. On average, the store manager is in charge of scheduling, managing, and hiring a larger staff compared to the size of the pharmacy staff. However, since the pharmacy staff consists of fewer workers, each worker is more important to the pharmacy and keeping it running smoothly. Employees of the pharmacy are much harder to replace than the regular store employees.